So today we'll be looking at epidemiology and research methodology, a very important topic in public health. And with what is currently happening in the world now, I know we all are in our homes because of the pandemic. Epidemiology is making sense more to the world as it was not earlier on. So we're going to learn and understand epidemiology and its uses. We're going to recognize the different types of epidemiology research method. We are going to explain how to design scientific researches by this method. We are going to compare the different types of research methods, the advantages and the disadvantages. And we are also going to look at some definitions. So first of all, we need to realize that epidemiology is a very important public health approach. It's a very critical objective study in public health. So in this public health approach, there are a few things. You look at the steps, you look at the surveillance. Okay, like now we have the pandemic in the world. We look at the surveillance. So what is the problem? When you're talking about epidemiology, what is the problem? Then the next is the risk factors. You identify the risk factors. So what is the cause? Yes, there's a problem. People are dying in Kanu, and people are dying in Wuhan. When the outbreak started in September, people just started dying. So the question is, what is the problem? I could remember there's a doctor, Dr. Lee in China, that voiced out that, oh, there's a respiratory problem that is unusual. People are coming down with this kind of respiratory problem. What might it be? So actually, he started the epidemiology of the coronavirus. We're going to define it in the process of time. Then the next thing is what is the risk factor? What is the cause? Okay, and then the next thing you go into is what is the intervention? Okay, what works? And so right now, when it comes to, so we're going to use what is happening in the world today as a practical example of what we are talking, so that it will not be something theoretical. I know many years ago when we learned epidemiology, it looks more theoretical, but with what is happening right now, epidemiology is just real. This is the first time you and I are staying indoors for 1 month. So we are going to use the coronavirus pandemic to be discussing, because this is one of the greatest epidemiological challenge the world has experienced in the past 100 years. So we're going to use it to discuss, to bring home what we are talking about. Okay, so right now, the world is in the process of what works. What works? You know, different people are making suggestions. I think this will work. I think that will work. Right now, they say, okay, chloroquine, we think it will work. Then later, another school of thought say, okay, we think maybe the thing will work. You know, so what will work? What works? The world is into that. What works? One of the things that work that the world have realized is that, you know, social distance works. At least it helped in Wuhan, China. So when you discover what works, then the next is to draft how to implement it. Implementation, how do you do it? So in epidemiology, you start from the problem, you get to the calculated solution, then you move to a response, then you evaluate. So what are the core sciences in public health? So you have the core sciences, you have the surveillance, okay? You have the, first of all, informatics, surveillance, preventive effectiveness, epidemiology, laboratory. So public health, these are the different components of public health. And each of them is interrelated. Each one needs the other, you know, to work, okay? So what's the purpose of epidemiology in public science? What's the purpose in public health? First of all, help us to discover the agent, the host, and the environmental factors that affect health. So it's epidemiology that helps us to discover that. Okay. So in the case of the current pandemic, so the agent, we've been able to discover, oh, the agent is coronavirus, okay, the host, human being. Environmental factors, there are not much environmental factors, is not a climatic induced something. Okay, then the next thing is to determine the relative importance of causes of illness, disability, and death. Another thing is it helps you to identify those segments of the population that have the greatest risk from specific causes of ill health. So this particular ill health we are having now, that's the pandemic. We know that the segment of the population that is most at risk are the elderly from 60 years above and those that have underlying medical conditions. These people are at the highest risk of coronavirus. Then the next thing is to evaluate the effectiveness of health programs and services in providing population health. So in solving health problems, we look at the critical things you need to do. The first thing you need to do, you collect the data, you assess the data, you draw your hypothesis, then you take your action. Again, in regarding to the current pandemic in the world, okay, data has been collected. We have a lot of data all across the nations of the world. As of now, we have over 3 million people already down with this disease. Assessment is being done, and assessments have been done in some places. So right now is generation of hypotheses. After hypotheses have been generated, some hypotheses have been generated, they've been tested. Some of them are not giving us the desired medical outcome. Some hypotheses are currently being generated and they will be tested, then action taken. So under this health problem, you have the surveillance and you determine the time, place, and person. That's data collection. Then you have the assessment, the interference. Then step 3, which talks about hypothesis testing. You talk about you're going to determine how and why you're taking that step. Then you have your intervention. Okay, so please take note of these key terms. Okay, so key epidemiological terms. So we have epidemic or an outbreak. Okay, so what is an outbreak? What is an epidemic? Okay, so this is when a disease occurs among a population that is in an excess of what is expected on a given time. Okay, so let me give an example. There's usually outbreak is usually a known disease. Okay, let's use a known disease. So 2-3 years ago, there was an outbreak of meningitis. There are times we have outbreak of Lassa fever. There are times we have outbreak of cholera. These are some of the common outbreaks, okay, that normally happen in Nigeria. Okay, so some people have outbreak of dengue fever. Okay, there are times you have outbreak of Ebola. So an outbreak is occurrence among the population and is in excess of what is expected at a given time. So at a given time, we may expect that a population of 1 million have about 5 people that have cholera. But when we now see that cholera, everybody's coming down with cholera, then it's an outbreak. Okay, if we take Nigeria from as an example, here and there you will see people that have a Neisseria meningitis here and there in Nigeria. But there are times you have an outbreak, as it happened 3 years ago. So what's a cluster? Cluster is a group of cases in a specified time and place that might be more than expected. Okay, so you can say disease cluster. Okay, so a group of cases. So you have a cluster. Maybe in when it comes to outbreak in Nigeria, is most common in the north. Okay, so you can say a cluster in this area. This area have a high cluster of that disease. Okay, if we use the current challenge we have in the world now, right now, Kanu is showing us a cluster of this pandemic. Okay, so what is endemic? Endemic is a disease or condition present among a population at all time. At all time. Every time that disease, if you take a sample of the population, you will see that disease. So in Nigeria, you can say malaria is endemic in Nigeria. Okay, or typhoid fever is endemic. This is a typhoid fever endemic region because at each time T in Nigeria, okay, that you will get malaria. somebody is carrying that protozoa. At each time T in Nigeria, somebody has typhoid fever. So that's what you call endemic. Then a pandemic is a disease or condition that spread across regions. So that's why coronavirus is called a pandemic. It's not called an epidemic, it's not called an endemic, it's not called a cluster. It is called what? A pandemic. Why? Because just within 4 months, it has spread across the world. From January till now, every part of the world, okay, even in the Antarctic regions, they already have the virus. So it's a pandemic. So another important epidemiology term is rate. The rate is the number of cases occurring during a specific period of time. So you can say the rate of the disease is 5% of the population. Okay, that means if you have a population of 100, 5 persons have it. So you can say the disease rate is 5%. Okay, so the rate again is the number of cases occurring during a specified period of time. So you can say in Q1 or in Q2 or in Q3 of 2020, the rate of coronavirus in Nigeria is what? The 1,500 or 1,800 people that have been identified over the 200 million Nigerians. So that's what you use to calculate rate. It's always dependent on the size of the population during that time. Please take note. Rate is dependent on the size of the population during that time. So now in epidemiology, we do medical research. So why do we do all this medical research? Why do we do studies? Why do we spend money in laboratory researches and studies? So why do we do it? Okay. So the objective of medical research, epidemiological research, is to describe the health status of the population in certain community and subsequently diagnose a health problem. So that is why we do research. Okay, another reason why we do research is to discover the causes of disease and determinants of e-health or good health. So what are the causes of disease or determinants of e-health? So that's why we do epidemiology study. Another thing is to discover the risk factor that predispose to disease of unknown etiology. So there are some diseases that are of unknown etiology. What are the risk factors? Okay, some diseases are like sickle cell anemia, like kwashiorkor. Okay, kwashiorkor, there was during the Civil War, there's what we call kwashiorkor, which is a disease. So what is the risk factor? Okay, is absence of protein. Right now, it's rare to see a kwashiorkor patient. So when you know it's an unknown etiology, nobody knows about that disease, it began to happen, among the children in the eastern region, then they have to take time to understudy. They find out that, oh, the risk factor to coming down with kwashiorkor is absence of vitamin, of protein. Okay, so another reason why we do is to complete the clinical picture of disease from the beginning of pathological changes till cure or occurrence of complications. So it helps us to have a total picture of this disease, okay, from the time where there's a pathological changes. So pathological changes mean when we began to see observable changes in the tissues, in the cell of the body, okay, till we get to cure or occurrence of complications. So the medical research, etiological research, help us to have a total picture. It also helps us to evaluate the effectiveness of health services or test the validity of diagnostic tests or evaluate the prognosis. So these are some of the important assumptions we need to make. Disease does not occur randomly. We know that it does not occur randomly. Disease have identifiable causes and can be altered and therefore can be prevented from developing. Okay, so these are some of the assumptions. So health is a state of equilibrium between what? The agent and the host, in between the environment. So what do we mean? Let me take back this assumption, okay? Especially some people in Africa. Some people in Africa don't agree those days that disease have an identifiable cause. So medical science and all those things had challenges. So it's an assumption those days that, oh, maybe it's a demon or maybe it's an evil spirit. I don't disagree that an evil spirit can enhance a disease or can induce a disease. But a lot of diseases we have are product of identifiable pathogens or identifiable environmental conditions or identifiable chemical agents. Okay, so all these things are identifiable and they can be altered. Okay, so if you have a molecule that can intercept with an organism's proliferation, okay, you have a molecule that can intercept with an organism's life cycle, then you can prevent that disease. And that's what the world, everyone in the world is running after, to be able to catch up with the coronavirus pandemic. You know, the world is running after to see a way of having a cause that can help. Okay, so take note, the health is a state of equilibrium between agent and the host. So what do we mean by that? An agent is an organism that is in a body, okay? A host is the person or individual that is hosting or that the organism is in the person's body. So now you can say this man is healthy. Some organisms, okay, at 5% of the activity or at 1% of their circulation in the bloodstream, they can cause disease. Some organisms need to be there to grow. So what we are saying is this, okay, this equilibrium, immediately it tilts, immediately the host start going down and the agents start going up, then the person is considered sick. So let's look at our first objective is to define epidemiology and what are the uses. What is epidemiology? Okay, so epidemiology is the study of epidemics and epidemic disease. Okay, Stedman Medical Dictionary. We've already talked about what is an epidemic. It's the science of making the obvious obscure. The obvious obscure. Okay, that's epidemiology. Okay, so for medical students, is the words taught in medical school. That's these are the definition from different group of people. And epidemiology say that okay, epidemiology is, and epidemiology say that epidemiology is the science of making the obvious obscure. Medical students say is the word taught in medical school. Okay, because it's not given attention as it should be. Okay, so I don't know what you're going to call epidemiology. But generally, the word epidemiology comes from the Greek word epi, meaning on or upon, demos, meaning people, and logos, meaning the study. So what it simply means is the study of what is upon people. Okay, so the definition, in summing the definition, we say that epidemiology is the study of the distribution and determinant of health-related states or events in specified population. Take note of that, is the distribution and the determinant of health-related state or event in specified population, and the application of this study to control health problems. I want to take it again. Okay, we are studying the distribution and the determinant. Okay, so we are looking at the health state. Okay, we are looking at a population. So we are saying, okay, this is the distribution and this is the determinant of their state, okay, in this population. Then we take that information, then we use it to study how to control problems of that population. Okay. So observable, okay, so let's look at another important thing, different studies in epidemiology. So we have observable studies, okay, and observable studies according to time of research. So we have, this is the way it goes. This is a history, this is time now, this is the future, okay. So you can do a retrospective case control. So you are studying about what has happened in retrospect, okay, or you can do a cross-sectional case series, okay. So you are studying what is happening now, or you are doing a prospective cohort follow-up. Okay, so these are the observational studies you can do. You can do retrospective. You can, study the history. Okay, doing researches or studying books and materials about disease condition, studying patterns, and from that you can be able to design something. Or you can do a cross-sectional case study series. You can study now, or you can do a prospective cohort follow-up. Okay, so now in observational studies, when you are studying in epidemiology, there are two things. We look at the descriptive and we look at the analytical. Okay, you look at the descriptive study, you look at the analytical. In descriptive, you are looking at cross-sectional, you look at the cross-section of people, then you look at case series. Okay, you study case by case. In analytical, you look at the case control, then you look at the cohort. Okay, so we want to look at descriptive versus analytical epidemiology. Okay, these are types of epidemiology. Okay, now in descriptive, okay, epidemiology deals with these questions: who, what, when, and where. Take note of it. Descriptive, who, okay, who, what. In who you are looking at which group of people that we are looking at. What are we looking at? What are we trying to study about this group of people? Then you look at when. When are we trying to study this? You look at where. Where are we trying to study this? Okay. Or you can look at analytical. You do analytical study. You look at why. Why are we studying it? And how are we studying it? So in descriptive, okay, take note. We say in descriptive, we are looking at cross-section, we are looking at case study. In analytical, we are looking at case control, we are looking at cohort. So when we are looking at descriptive study, we are looking at who, what, how, who, what, when, and where. If we are looking at analytical study, we are looking at why and how. Okay. So the third objective, is what I just mentioned now. In the third objective, what we are looking at mainly in the third objective is want to explain how to design scientific research by different methods. Sorry, my slide, this is supposed to be coming up. Okay, that's a mistake. Okay, so we are looking at how to design scientific research by different methods. So we've looked at two methods. We look at descriptive methodology, we look at analytical methodology. Okay, so right now, when you want to do observational descriptive epidemiology study, okay, the things you need to take into cognizance, you are going to look at, the specified population of the people. Then you are looking at health-related problem of these people. Then you are going to look at the distribution, and you are going to look at the risk factor. So now we want to do an observational descriptive epidemiology study of this village. Okay, so when we are doing that study, we are looking at, okay, this population. Okay, I stay in Ogudu, Lagos, so we are looking at Ogudu. That's the population. So you are going to now check all the people in Ogudu. We are going to ask ourselves, what is the health-related problem we want to study? Okay, we can say, okay, in this place, we want to study about cardiovascular diseases, cardiovascular condition. Then we need to now say, okay, what is the distribution? So we have a cohort. When you have a cohort is like the number of people you want to study. Okay, the quantity of people you want to study in your clinical epidemiological study. So that's the number of people. So in that cohort, you are going to now ask yourself, in this cohort, what is the health-related problem I need to focus on? Okay, now before you talk about a health-related problem, that problem should have your researches, like we mentioned earlier on, after your epidemiological study, the outcome should be something that will be able to help us take a health policy action plan. Now, like if you look at the outbreak we are currently having, at the end of this outbreak, you are going to see that a lot of things are going to change as regard to what health policies, as regard to health policies. Because if the epidemiology and the public health structure of the world was very good, I doubt if this outbreak will get to the way it is. What you're going to see subsequently is that if there's an outbreak anywhere, if there's an evolving disease anywhere, the world is going to be more informed. It's going to be the impact of the policy. So epidemiological study help us to come out with outcomes that can help us make a better decision in there's a lot of study going on in the world looking at coronavirus as a case study. At the end of the day, we're going to see policies. At the end of the day, we are going to observe that subsequently, if there's an outbreak, if there's a new disease, there's an emerging infection in a place, the world is not going to say, oh, that is a Chinese virus. No. The world is not going to say, oh, that is Africa Ebola. No. Or Africa virus, that's Ebola. No. The world is not going to say, that is Middle East virus, MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. The world is not going to say new health models that will maintain, that will keep the population in a healthy state. And that's the beautiful thing about epidemiology, okay? Because after a study, we come out with an outcome, and the outcome can influence policies. So when you want to do an observation descriptive study, epidemiology study in an area, you take a cohort, okay, specified population, you evaluate the health-related problem, you look at the distribution and the risk factor. So let's look at the distribution, okay? So in distribution, you talk about the health event in the population. So you are looking at, I want to study a population of 2 million. The distribution is going to talk about this event, okay? I want to study about dengue fever. Let's use something that is common in Africa. I want to study about malaria in a population of 2 million within a geographical region, okay? So that's my study. Now, the thing I need to look at is the frequency and the pattern. Now, what is the frequency? The frequency talks about the numbers and the rates the prevalence, the incidence, the number of people coming out with the disease, the rate of people, the rate. So the rate, as we mentioned, is the percentage number of people as compared to what the bulk population. Then I'm going to look at the prevalence. How prevalent is that disease in that environment? Then I'm going to look at what is the incident rate. So now when you're studying, if you're looking at a disease, the distribution, you're looking at what? The frequency, we talked about the number, the rate, the prevalence, the incident. Then the next thing you look at is the pattern. The pattern of the disease is going to talk about the time. What time do these diseases reoccur? Like if we take meningitis, we know that meningitis is more common during the dry season. Why? Because dogs help in carrying that Neisseria meningococcus, which is a bacteria. It can fall out of people's excrete. When people sneeze through saliva, through droplet, it can fall on the ground. And during dry seasons, when the air is communicable. Okay, so you need to look at the time of the disease occurring. You need to look at the person. Which persons are more common? What's the pattern of the people that carry it? Is it these people are not neat? Or is it people of this kind of gene? Is it this kind of color and co? Then the next thing you're going to look at is place. What are the places? Okay, which places do these things stay more? Okay, like if we look at Ebola, you know that in Senegal and in Liberia and in Democratic Republic of Congo, you have places that those things, emanate. Lassa fever, the name Ebola, interestingly, the name Ebola is the name of a river. Ebola is the name of a river. There's an area that is called Ebola, I think in DRC. So is that name of a river that is now the virus is called. Lassa, interestingly, Lassa is a name in Nigeria. I think in Maiduguri, there's a state that has Lassa. Okay, so because in that place was the first place this virus was observed, it's called what? Lassa fever. So you're going to look at the place, you're going to look at when, you're going to look at who, and you're going to look at where. Okay, so when we're looking at distribution, we look at the frequency and we look at the pattern. Okay, so we are going to continue from here, from next week. Sorry, from upper week, not next. Okay, yes, next week we'll be having, because we missed the last class. So there'll be another class Thursday next week because we missed last week's class. Okay, so it's supposed to be on the 2nd and the 4th Friday. Sorry, 2nd and 4th Friday. We are having this course, but we missed last week, so we're having this week. Then we're having next. Right now, we've have a fair idea of what is epidemiology. Why do we study epidemiology? We're going to look at we've looked at a few research methodologies. Okay, so right now, I want to give you an assignment before you take question. So can you write down the assignment? Write down the assignment. Okay. So the assignment is using, I'm going to type it here. Evaluate the current pandemic. Evaluate the current pandemic in the light of epidemiology and public health. Okay. Public health. Okay. So you're going to assess So you're going to evaluate this current pandemic we have. You're going to evaluate it in the light of epidemiology and public health. Okay. So when you evaluate it, we are going to discuss possible policy changes that will result. Possible health policy changes that will come out of a comprehensive, epidemiology research study of this current pandemic. Study of this current pandemic. So, so what you're going to do is this current pandemic, that's the COVID-19, you are going to evaluate the current pandemic in the light of epidemiology and public health. After that, you are going to now discuss the health changes that will come out of a comprehensive epidemiology study, of the current pandemic. Okay. So my email address is innocent.ekeleme@gmail.com. So please, can we unmute them so that we take a question? And my phone number is 08087349345. Okay. So we just have 1 minute left. Do we have any question? 1 minute left. Okay. Please kindly take note of these of the assignment and ensure that you work on it. Okay. So in the absence of any question, the organizers are informing us that our time is up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating. And I'll see you next week, Friday. and have a good day. Bye.